Good morning, West Coast. Good afternoon, East Coast. Thank you for joining us for today's CITI program webinar. Today's topic is FERPA, a quick review of the law for researchers and IRBs, and it'll be presented by Thomas Gold. The webinar will be recorded, and the recording will be available on the CITI program website. Now, let me tell you about today's presenter, Thomas Gold. Thomas Gold is a researcher and consultant with extensive experience in the United States and globally. He started his career conducting research on political change in Italy as a Fulbright Fellow. For the past 18 years, Dr. Gold has held leadership positions focusing on research, measurement, and evaluation in education, local government, and nonprofit institutions. He led the Office for External Research and the Institutional Review Board of the New York City Department of Education. His work has ranged from leading major studies in New York City's public schools to spearheading the thought, leadership, and research efforts of a leading entrepreneurship nonprofit in the United States. Dr. Gold has written extensively on urban education, entrepreneurship, and European politics. He received his BA from the New York University and his PhD in political science from the New School University.
So today we are going to be talking about FERPA, the Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act. And there are really four different learning objectives that we have today. We want to describe the origins of FERPA, identify how it is applied in educational institutions, how FERPA, the law itself, categorizes what we call protected information and legitimate educational interest. And finally, we want to identify FERPA requirements for IRBs, including areas around consent. Now let's talk a little bit about the basics. FERPA is a federal law that applies to any educational institution that receives funds from programs administered by the U.S. Department of Education. Any K-12 school, any elementary, middle, or high school, public elementary, middle, high school, does receive funds and of course is covered under FERPA, but as are post-secondary institutions, colleges and universities. Now it also includes state educational agencies as well as local educational agencies. Now, while all public K-12 schools are covered under FERPA, there are many private and parochial schools that are not because they do not receive any federal funds. But if you're doing research and you're wondering about that, it's always good to check first. Now, private colleges and universities do receive federal funds mostly through the financial aid programs. And for that reason, they're subject to FERPA rules. Let's talk a little bit about how is FERPA actually applied in educational settings. What does it essentially look like? Well, there's two ways of looking at this. One, FERPA gives parents and what we call eligible students, and I'll get into a little bit about what I mean by an eligible student. It gives them the right to inspect and review their educational records. And what that means is that a parent or an eligible student can request to look at the student's record. And if there's something in there that they do not agree with, they can make a request to have that amended. Now, FERPA doesn't give them doesn't assure that that will be amended, but it does give them some processes and procedures for requesting that amendment to the record if they feel it's inaccurate, misleading, or in violation of the student's privacy rights. On the other hand, so that's one aspect of FERPA, which is the rights of parents and eligible students. On the other hand, FERPA also put some limitations on the educational institutions themselves about how they can release protected information from a student's educational record, and that term educational record is important. They must first obtain written consent from the parent or the eligible student before they can actually release that record to third parties. So in sum, when do IRBs need to reevaluate the informed consent process? Well, again, three areas that IRBs need to be aware of. So if anyone out there is an IRB administrator or is a member of an IRB, three things to think about. One, when research involves human subjects in schools or universities, by and large, you need to really rethink that informed consent process if any research is taking place in a school or university with students, teachers, and others. Second, when a teacher or professor is conducting research with their own students, that's very important. An IRB would look at that already in terms of concerns about undue influence, for example. But when it comes to FERPA, you also have to think about the consent process. And finally, when research involves the use of student-level data. That's when IRBs also need to think about informed consent process, because student level data has this extra protection. Let me take you through another case study. This one involving more research in schools. In this case, we have a fictitious principal named Melissa Harvey as a principal of a large urban high school in the Northeast United States. She became a principal after teaching at the school for 8 years and served as an assistant principal for 2 years. Now, she wants to pursue a doctorate degree in educational administration at the Teachers College, the local Teachers College. As part of that degree, Melissa's writing a dissertation about the impact of a special advising program she designed along with her student counseling staff over the past couple of years. And because the new advising system that they've developed is a robust system and it can only accommodate a limited number of students, they've decided to offer it to a random sample of 9th graders. You know, anyone who's a researcher out there knows that when you offer something to a random sample, that gives you a great opportunity to do research, because when you assign something randomly, then you have a ready-made treatment group, those who get the intervention, and a ready-made control group, those who do not. So she wants to use the information collected from this pilot for her dissertation. It's a perfect situation, right? She's excited that the random assignment of the program to students will offer this unique opportunity to rigorously study the program. And of course, it's quite simple. She's right there. And of course, it'll even help the school, because she'll understand what the impact of this program will be on the students who are receiving the intervention. Sadly, though, the question really is, does she have a legitimate educational interest to use this data for her dissertation? No. I mean, it's an ideal situation, but while the program setup is ideal for her research study, the use of the data for her dissertation, it wouldn't meet the standard of legitimate educational interest. And that's, again, because the idea is that she would want to use this for her dissertation itself. Now, if her study is being conducted to inform the program and school policies specifically, then it would meet that legitimate educational interest category.
So thank you everyone for attending today. Thank you again, Tom. And that concludes our webinar.